Well, yesterday tapping was quite a success, if a little scary because this manifold is not something I ever really want to do any machining work on, but maybe changing my mind a little bit after doing the initial fit of the 1/16 MPT plugs. All these, very nice. I had got them tapped. Oh, get some focus. So they sit nice and flush. Now that looks spiffing, but you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm concerned that even though these are MPT and they're tapered threads, I just don't like the level of risk that it's a fine thread, and if this goes into the engine, that's game over. So my original idea, to make sure nothing could drop through, was overkill. I'm not actually going to use this specific fitting because it's stainless rather than aluminium, and just FYI, if you haven't come across it before, stainless steel threads into aluminium threads, after a little while they'll be very unhappy and you're never likely to get it out again. So once I've got those new fittings in, then I can actually get back to the fit up. So for now I'm going to move on to some other little chores that we've got to do on the car. Fixed. Mel's first drift day, correct? The most important mod that's happened so far is now you can find yourself when you're lost and you don't know how hot it is. So, whilst we're waiting on fittings for the inlet manifold, so I can complete that, next up is changing the wastegate. Now, rear wastegate on the twin wastegate setup is a Turbosmart Compgate40, but it's the GenV. And on the front, I've got a Gen4. Now, don't ask me how I've ended up with this because it's a long and boring story. But what we're going to do for this year is change this over to a Gen5, which Turbosmart kindly sent us. So I'm just going to go through the process of changing that and getting it all clocked and aligned and trying to keep my OCD of the screamer pipes being parallel together. I can't tell if dust or smoke. Shiny new. So this will be 14 psi, so it's a 1 bar spring set up in it. And with the Gen 5s, you get a much nicer clamp. So these really help self-centering when you're actually locating it to make sure that you get your fire disc and everything like that in the correct situation. So, we'll be getting that on in a second. I can hear things. I've seen quite a few people have issues with kind of backlines and things on wastegates. I had it myself and it wrote me off for an entire round, so it wasn't worth the time going there. Whereas if I'd used braided steel lines, PTFE lines, then heat isn't going to be a problem, splitting isn't going to be a problem, they don't get pinched, and also fitting removal is much nicer because it's just a spanner job. You didn't see this. Because being OCD is incredibly important, first thing I'm going to do is make sure with a new wastegate that I get the ports in the same place compared to the screamer pipe. So when I sit it all back in, this will still be nice and parallel to the other screamer. Now, a lot of people say to not use PTFE tape, but from my actual normal employment, I'm kind of used to it. And I've used PTFE thread seal liquid quite a few times, but never trust it as much as genuine PTFE tape. The important thing is to make sure that you don't get any tape past the tip of where you're threading in, so you don't get any bits break off, and you want to make sure you go in the same direction as the thread, so when you're tightening it up it doesn't kind of peel it back and then start putting it apart.
did.
Really? Mechanic.
No sound. It's illegal.
There is definitely sound on that. Beautiful. I'm going to put a little mark on that so then I'll know where it needs to line up. So can only really get near enough, close enough for jazz, but cool. Let's just start this. So pre-mark where the flanges are going to meet each other. That'll give me a bit of a fighting chance of when it's in the engine bay I can actually kind of locate it all straight away and not have to try and get a clamp around it. But these clamps, they're nice, much nicer. What I'm going to try and do though is hook up an airline fitting. So again, when you fit a wastegate, you'll probably notice that obviously your firing compresses down a bit. Obviously with the 1-bar spring in, there's quite a bit of pressure to try and get this fitted in. So rather than me just leaning on the top of it to then get the clamp around and get it all clamped down in place, connect airline to one of these ports, that'll actually lift the diaphragm up, which means that the firing will just slot perfectly straight inside and you can just focus more on getting your V-band mounted up nicely. Or I won't be able to find any fittings for the airline, which means I won't be able to do that and I'll be doing the old leany trick. I'm only there with actually finding part of the bits I need. But basically, if you inject air into the bottom port, that will lift the diaphragm so you can install it nicely and then release it and it'll all sit back down where it should. Lovely. All I need to do now is find some actual silicone pipe, but I'll see what I find. Oh wow, I'm such a professional. I don't think I really want that spanner to stay on there. So, great success, new wastegate's on. The level of satisfaction that you can get to is lovely. There is something I'm really not happy about, and I haven't been for the past couple of years. That, and the fact that these rocker covers, I've got another company to weld up the AN10 fittings on them, and as you can see from there, they sweat when the oil gets hot, and I don't like that. Paint's damaged, and this was meant to be VHT wrinkle, but basically I painted it outside in a sandstorm in the wind, so it's never quite been right. So, on to phase 2. Got some fresh old 1J rocker covers in for the slaughter, so John's going to do a bit of alley welding, put some new bungs on the back, you can have the proper oil breather system, and then I'll redo the other ones as spares for the future. Lovely job. I kind of wonder if he's done anything today other than drive backwards and forwards in the forklift, but it's not even his. Mel's not dead yet, so that's a bonus. I was trying to film my new favourite toy, and I took a photo of it rather than filming it. But this thing is, I mean, this is terribly brutal. next time, Gadget.